2021. Thank you for being here. We're so excited for the new year and all that IREM Austin is working on, which you'll learn about later in the program. We'll discuss our leadership team. We'll discuss IREM Austin's strategic goals for the next 3 years. And we'll discuss a few other issues that we believe are important to the organization and deserve our attention now. Despite the pandemic, IREM Austin's future is bright. We've assembled a leadership team that mixes seasoned experience and fresh ideas with the talent to bring it all together. We've got the best industry partners in the country and could not have thrived into the chaos of last year without each of them. We've got the most organized, forward-thinking associate executive, association executive that we can imagine. And we have you, our members, which are the heart of our organization. We learn from you, we appreciate you, and look forward to growing together. We certainly wish that we could be with each of you, smiling and shaking hands, hugging and waiting in the food line of salad and veggies and 3 meats, when all we want after 2020 is the bread and dessert. And we deserve it. Okay, telling bad jokes with no feedback on here is pretty tough, so bear with me, they'll keep coming. We look forward to seeing each of you in person as soon as it's safe to do so. But until then, we'll work hard to bring you incredible content to help you get better each day. Now, I'd like to introduce Ms. Sheila McHarg, Managing Director at Cushman & Wakefield, my boss, colleague, mentor, and friend, as she'll be performing our installation of the 2021 IREM Austin Executive Council, consisting of Sam Shannon, Kathleen Goddard, Amanda Cox-Sneed, Scott Arvig, Melissa Kreutner, Andrea Sanchez, Evan Williams, and myself. Take it away, Sheila.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. It wouldn't be a Zoom call if one of us didn't have to say that. So good morning, everybody. I want to thank you for the opportunity to preside over the induction of Adam and the rest of the incoming officers for IREM. And if I can just share a couple of comments before we get started, I want to congratulate Amanda and her team for a job well done for last year. You guys took over in a year that brought unprecedented challenges, and you all stepped up. You kept IREM very relevant for our members. You organized and implemented some great programs and some great strategies. And I just want to invite the audience. I know you can't hear us applaud, but I want to applaud all of you for doing such a tremendous job. I know it was challenging, and we're all going to have some things to put on our resume and some great stories when we look back on our careers for being the team and being the group that had to lead commercial real estate and property management through the 2020 insanity. So good job, everybody. I would ordinarily caution Adam and warn him that he's got some very, very big shoes to fill, and he doesn't look good in high heels, trust me. But you're right, Adam, bad jokes with no feedback is really kind of flying without a net, working without a net. It's kind of scary, but and it's true. He does have some great, some big shoes to fill. But I know Adam, and I know what a great manager he is. I know what a great leader he is, and I know how dedicated he is to IREM, personally and professionally. I know I've watched the effort that he's put into to his role with IREM and balancing that with his other personal and professional obligations. And so I know we're in good hands. Adam has assembled an incredible team with all of you there to support him and back him up. And I'm really excited about the future of IREM Austin based on what I see on this screen. So with that, I will jump right in and appreciate the script that was provided. And I apologize for reading. As the incoming officers and board members of the IREM Austin chapter, you're about to assume a vital role in leading the Institute of Real Estate Management into the future. The leadership you provide to your chapter members will determine not only how well the chapter operates for your year in office, but how your professional peers and the public view the real estate management profession. As representatives of your chapter, you'll be examples of the ethical conduct and professional excellence that the CPM, ARM, ACOM, and AMO certifications represent. No pressure. Your commitment will require time, effort, and perhaps even a little sacrifice. But the fact that you've been elected to this office by your fellow chapter members demonstrates you have the ability to meet this challenge, and I wholeheartedly endorse their selection. As an officer and board member of the IREM Austin chapter, you'll carry out the duties of your position to the best of your ability. You promise to abide by the Constitution and bylaws of IREM Austin. So I ask you to acknowledge these responsibilities by raising your right hand. Okay, I can see everybody's right hand. Do you pledge today to uphold your duties as an officer and board member of IREM Austin? Please confirm by saying, I do.
I do.
I do.
Awesome. By virtue of the authority conferred upon me, I hereby proclaim each of you duly and officially installed officers and board members of IREM Austin. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Sheila. We appreciate you. We appreciate your time and the leadership that you continue to give to the organization. Now, before spending a few minutes talking about what we're looking forward to in 2021, I think it's important to look back at 2020. We did spend a little bit of time at the holiday luncheon with Amanda recapping the successes of the year, but we didn't spend a lot of time recapping the success of Amanda and how she had positioned us for that. So Amanda and I was fortunate to be brought into being an officer at the same time with her. She had successfully chaired multiple committees, had earned 2 designations, and she was asked to be treasurer, bypassing the secretary role that I was asked to fill in because I hadn't quite successfully chaired as many committees. And truly, no offense, Amanda, but I'm kind of glad you went first, if that's fair, right? In seriousness, though, 2020, it was meant to be for Amanda because Amanda was prepared. She always is. She makes presentations look effortless, and she kept us all calm when calm was nowhere else to be found. She was flexible with every pivot and supported all of her leaders throughout the year, allowing the organization to be successful. As a result, we did big things. We held multiple virtual education events on a variety of topics when we didn't know what that would look like. We enjoyed some really creative social aspects and found ways to make virtual fun. Like, what's that about? And secured highly esteemed professionals to bring the best in industry training and updates during a wildly successful Trends event. So in 2020, we didn't simply survive, we thrived. And we did so because of the leadership of Amanda Cox-Sneed. I would ask everyone to unmute themselves and give a round of applause. I realize we can't, but Amanda, know that everyone else besides me is clapping as well. And we appreciate everything that you have done and will continue to do for us. Also, Amanda will be receiving a special past president's pin that she can wear on display for her hard work and her dedication to IREM Austin. So Jen will be getting that to you soon. Thank you very much, Amanda.
Thank you, Adam.
And we also appreciate, I'll just say, we appreciate everyone bearing with us. This meeting is one that is heavy on speaking for the president in the beginning. If you know me, you know that's not an issue for me. I apologize that you have to listen to me uninterrupted for so long, but we'll try to get to the meat of that and then get on to our keynote speaker as soon as possible. Before doing so, we'd like to go ahead and give you a glimpse of the future. So first, I'd like to thank Jennifer George and Amanda Cox-Sneed for all of their work last year in helping us get started on our strategic plan for the years 2021 through 2023. Much effort was put forth in doing this the right way, and we could have not gotten to this point without you both. So thank you. Also, many of you in our leadership team participated in discovery surveys and a few web conferences to complete the important work, and we appreciate that as well. If we could, Jen, go ahead and pull that up. I'm not generally one to read directly from slides, but I think it's important to do so for our revised mission and vision statements. They've both been streamlined, and we feel they really capture the heart of our IREM work. We're really proud of them. So our mission statement is, IREM Austin uses the highest standards to engage, enrich, and develop real estate management professionals. Concise and to the point, that's what we do. Our vision statement is that we will lead a well-educated, diverse group of real estate management professionals with industry best practices and the highest of ethical standards. From there, we took a less is more approach, focusing on quality and not quantity. When we make strides in these three areas, and we will prepare our organization to succeed well into the future. We'll spend a bit of time going through each. 2020 may have brought this topic to the forefront, but we all know that diversity is a topic that has always been critical. We have different ideas about what this means, where we are, and what needs to be done. As a result, our lead goal is to diversify our membership. As we also know, 2021 will continue, at least to some extent, to be virtual and or hybrid. Programming has always been a strong backbone of IREM Austin, but we don't want to lose traction here. As such, excellence in programming is the next goal. Last, but certainly not least, is excellence in engagement. Engagement with you, our members, our industry partners, and our volunteers that are critical to the success of our organization. So next, I'd like to talk through a few specific tasks that we're planning to work toward these goals and support the future of IREM Austin. First, congratulations to our 2021 Future Leader Group. Immediate past president, Amanda Cox-Sneed, see that, she's not going anywhere, is chairing this group, and we've selected 15 incredible future leaders. We're excited to offer this opportunity for up-and-coming leaders, both in the industry and within our organization. The future is truly bright. This program started a few years ago and has been wildly successful. The template has been used at several other chapters throughout the country, and IREM Austin actually won an International Innovation Award for the program 2 years ago. We're excited to continue. Another program that keeps us going each year is the Industry Partners Program. We're fortunate to have best in trade partners participate each year. They've always kept us financially sound, but we're really excited that in recent years, they've raised up our level of interaction, and we look forward to partnering together with them in different ways in the future. In fairness to our partners, we've created a special committee that will analyze the existing program, consider industry partner feedback, and recommend changes to keep the program strong into the future. I'd like to thank President-elect Sam Shannon of JLL for agreeing to chair this impactful committee. More to come on this exciting work. Last, but certainly not least, we're thrilled to announce the creation of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, chaired by Samantha Thornton. I don't know if we're more excited to get this important committee started or to have the great fortune of having Samantha chair it, but we know good things are ahead. To ensure this is handled in a thoughtful, meaningful way, we're planning to take our time to select the committee, its taskings, and begin meeting in the months to come. If you have an interest in the committee, want to share feedback, or have any ideas to share, please reach out to Samantha directly and she'll be happy to work with you. Finally, the remainder of the IREM Austin structure is intact with our standing committees that bring you the best in our industry each year. We've built a strong leadership team, and our committee chairs and vice chairs are the foundation of everything that we do. Take a moment to look at this list of talented, smart volunteers that will be helping you grow during the year of 2021. I'd like to thank each of them for agreeing to serve you in the coming year. Okay, now to kick off the new year, and my role as president, I'm honored to induct a new CPM, Chad Balgard with Roscoe Property Management. I had the pleasure of meeting Chad, not in Austin, but actually in San Francisco for IREM's Global Summit 2 years ago. He was there to represent Roscoe as they were a finalist for the AMO of the year. While they did not take home the prize, they represented Austin well, and we're glad to see Chad showing his team the importance of becoming a CPM. Chad, glad to see you, and we will go ahead and get started. I'm honored to be a part of this momentous occasion, which marks a significant achievement by our newly certified member. It's the beginning of a new level of professional potential for him, his firm, and his clients. On behalf of our inductee, I'd like to thank his families, friends, colleagues, and employers who've supported and championed him on this professional journey. For over 85 years, our members have made us the world's strongest voice for all things real estate management. When one IREM member succeeds, we all succeed. It's my pleasure to recognize this outstanding colleague who has demonstrated much dedication and hard work by earning an IREM certification and is now ready to transform his professional knowledge and ethical standards into exceptional value for his companies, properties, and clients. Chad, along with the prestige and the benefits that come with your IREM certification, also comes important responsibilities. The IREM Code of Professional Ethics establishes and maintains public confidence in the honesty, integrity, professionalism, and ability of all IREM members. By agreeing to adhere to the IREM Code of Professional Ethics, you pledge to advance the professional real estate management industry, maintain the highest moral and ethical standards, preserve and encourage fair and equitable practices and competition among all who are engaged in the profession, to place honesty, integrity, and industrious above all else, to pursue ongoing education, to comply with the principles and declarations of IREM, and to acknowledge the ethical principles set forth in the international ethical standards established by the International Ethics Standards Coalition, of which the Institute is a member. Whew. To accept these responsibilities, please raise your right hand and respond, "I do," to the following statement. Chad, do you pledge today to uphold the IREM Code of Professional Ethics?
I do.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our newest CPM, Chad Balgard. Congratulations, Chad.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you don't mind, Chad, if you could take a moment, if you have any advice that you would like to offer to those that are in the midst of or interested in becoming a CPM, please go ahead and share it.
I think for everyone that's out there, I started this journey a long time ago, and I am very lucky to work for a company that embraces IREM, their designations, and their education. But it was me that had to make the time. And no one else is going to do that for you. So I just tell everyone, plan the time, make the time, and take the time to do this. And I also want to urge everyone to use your resources. I'm really proud to see Miranda MacArthur on the candidate guidance committee, because she has been a big help, as long with Amanda, when we were coworkers, that helped me through this process. So lean on the CPMs at IREM, lean on the team at IREM to help you, not only with guidance, but to hold you accountable. And that would be the advice that I would give everyone.
Thank you very much, Chad. That's incredible advice. If you can, for a moment, I think Jen would appreciate if we would pause and smile to take a screenshot. Okay, Jen, hopefully you got that, because I'm sure that was super awkward for everyone besides Chad and I. All right, thank you, Chad. And for everyone else, thank you for being with us today. Thank you for allowing me to share a little bit about our past, where we're headed. And when you get a moment, thank any of the leaders that you've seen on our committee chair and vice chair list and the officers. We're going to do everything we can this year to make you better at the end of 2021 than you were at the beginning, and we'd appreciate your help along the way. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Scott Arvik, who is the chair of the 2021 Programs Committee, as he'll introduce today's speaker. Stay tuned for more amazing programming from Scott's team.
Thank you, Adam. Good morning, everyone. We are glad you have joined us today for this month's program featuring Ellen Troxclair. She'll be speaking about her book, Step Up, How to Advocate Like a Woman. The book is about her journey on how she became a change maker at Austin City Hall and will inspire you to turn the same leadership, compassion, and tenacity that you already bring to your families and workplaces into effective advocacy for your community. During the presentation, we encourage you to participate by using the chat feature to engage in discussion or comment with other attendees on information Ellen shares during her presentation. If you have a question during the webinar, feel free to type it in the chat box as well. We'll be monitoring it and we'll engage in a Q&A session at the end of her presentation. Also, we have 5 books of Ellen's to give away to those who ask questions, so ask away in the chat box. Let me share with you a little bit about Ellen. Named a champion woman by the Independent Women's Forum, Ellen has been recognized nationally for her bold leadership. She is continuing her public policy efforts as a senior fellow with the Texas Public Policy Foundation and was a key part of enacting meaningful property tax reform at the state level in 2019. Ellen is a Fox News contributor and a frequent writer for Real Clear Politics, the Washington Examiner, and the Daily Caller. She can also be heard on Austin's highest rated talk radio show, KLBJ. In her real life, Ellen founded and runs a thriving real estate business, Troxclair Residential Group, and has been recognized as one of the best realtors in the business by both the Austin Business Journal's Profiles and Power Awards and Platinum Top 50's Realtor Awards. Ellen and her husband, Caleb, are the proud parents of 3 children, Juliet, Margaret, and Brooks, and are devoted to showing them the importance of giving back through nonprofit volunteer work and community involvement. She is passionate about inspiring a new generation of women to pursue leadership roles in policy and government. I am very much looking forward to this inspiring presentation of leadership and advocacy. Please join me in welcoming Ellen.
Hi guys, thank you so much for having me at your meeting today. It was actually interesting for me to sit through the beginning of it and to help you kind of recognize your leaders and hear about what the organization is doing. Wow, 2021, I wish that I could be doing this in person. I hoped and prayed that for sure by now we could see each other and greet each other with hugs and handshakes, but that will have to wait for next time. In the meantime, I am so thrilled to talk about the city of Austin and leadership. And I know in my bio, that was a lot of talk about women, but men, you are a really important part of this conversation as well. So I want to make sure that you stick around and stay tuned in as well. So a little bit about me. I was 29 years old. I was a Capitol staffer. I was familiar with policy, but happy to always be the person in the back of the room, the speech writer, not the speech giver. I had just gotten married to my husband, Caleb, who I had also met working at the Capitol. And we just bought our first house. We pooled all our money. We barely had enough for our 3.5% down payment that was required for our FHA loan. Caleb started law school, working during the day and going to law school in San Antonio at night. And I got my real estate license, but I also realized when I looked at our salaries and I looked at our tax bills that the property taxes in Austin were going up an average of 8% year over year, which was the maximum allowed by state law. And I looked around to my neighbors and thought, well, I'm not getting an 8% pay raise year over year. Are you guys? No. Well, what are we going to do about it? Then the city council changed from an at-large system to a district-based system, meaning that each district had the opportunity to elect its individual representative rather than everybody being elected by the city as a whole. And I thought, well, maybe this is a good chance for us to elect some people to city council who are going to really care about the financials, who are really going to be transparent about where our money is going and why they need so much of it every year. But unfortunately, as I looked around to see who was running in my district, while I I met them and had great respect for them. None of them were talking about the issues that I felt like were most important for the future of the city, which was affordability. I mean, this was 6 years ago. And I know it's gotten even worse today, but I thought, I really woke up one day, never having wanted to run for office before, and said, I'm so frustrated about this issue and I don't see anybody else speaking up. And if I don't do it, then I can't complain. And Caleb looked at me and said, but you hate public speaking and you've never wanted to run for office. I said, I don't know. I don't know what's gotten into me, but I think I'm going to do it. So long story short, ran a very competitive campaign, came in first in a general election, and then won in a runoff election by only 57 votes. It was the tightest election in city council history. And I ran just exactly on what I just told you guys. I was frustrated about the rising budget in the city of Austin and the lack of accountability, and I wanted to do something about it. And even though I was young, the youngest woman now having ever been elected in the city of Austin, I knew that voice was not being represented. So what do you do? It was no secret that I was kind of the only fiscal conservative for at least part of my time on the council. And a lot of people say, well, what can you possibly do? You were only 1 vote of 10. And that's true. I was the dissenting vote on a lot of issues. I was on the losing side of a lot of issues, but I wasn't on the losing side of all of them. And I was able to get some important policy things done. Everything from a lemonade stand. Did you know that kids used to have to get a city permit in order to sell lemonade in their front yard? Not anymore. I was able to pass a homestead exemption, meaning that everybody in the city of Austin now gets a 10% break on the home that they live in. And that's a big deal. It was 6%. That was something that I worked on over those 4 years. 6% my first year, 2% my second year, on maternity leave my third year, and another 2% the next year. And unfortunately, even though they can go up to 20%, again, a 20% discount on your city portion of your property taxes, unfortunately, they haven't made any other progress since my time on council. So there were those small wins, and then there were those big wins as well. And when it came time for re-election, I was so conflicted. I felt a lot of pressure to seeing as I was often the only one representing the other side of the issue, regardless of what the issue was. I knew that if I didn't run again, that voice might not be there anymore. And it wasn't just for the constituents in South, but for a lot of people across the city who shared the same focus. And even though I often maybe voted differently than my other council colleagues, I knew that there were so many issues that were nonpartisan and that we could find common ground on. And so how do I leave? This was such important and rewarding work. And I'd finally figured out how to do it after 4 years, right? Don't I have a responsibility to do that again? Well, I ultimately got to the point that I thought, you know what, instead of feeling guilty for not running for another 4 years and serving a total of 8 years if I was reelected, I'm proud of what I've done so far. I'm proud that I stepped up in the first place. I'm proud that I threw my hat in the ring, even though I didn't know the right people. I had never run for office before. I didn't have a political science degree. I didn't have personal money to spend on the campaign. And I was the underdog. I was proud of myself that I had done that I had stepped outside my comfort zone, that I had gotten a seat on that council, and that I had really stood as an unwavering advocate for fiscal accountability in the city. Did I mention that I had 2 kids while on council and then a third since then? So a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old, they certainly made it even more challenging decision. And I know that's a question that I get a lot from women, but what about my kids? Well, I know that even though there were some nights that I felt guilty for not being there, and in those endless council meetings that went from 10 a.m. to 2 or 3 in the morning, I knew that I was setting a good example for them and that they were going to be proud of me once they were old enough to understand the sacrifice that I made for our community and for them. So ultimately, I decided not to run again. And upon reflection, believe me, after those 4 years, I was burnt out. I didn't want I didn't want to talk about city politics. I just needed a break. It had been, like I said, important and rewarding work, but oh my gosh, I was exhausted. But after taking a couple months to kind of get myself together again, to figure out what I was going to do going forward, get my residential real estate business kind of revived and back on its feet. And yes, spend some time with my poor neglected husband and kiddos. I thought, I'm not the only one. I mean, like, I'm not the only amazing, strong, confident, not working on building my confidence, but able to stand up for the principles that I believe in. And I'm certainly not the only person who's able to represent a differing perspective than what is commonly heard on the Austin City Council bubble. So why was it that it felt like the pressure was all on me and that we didn't have more people, but in particular, more women standing up and running for office? And as I dived into it, I started a podcast with the Texas Public Policy Foundation, where I talked to female leaders across the country about why they stepped up why they got involved in politics in the first place, what motivated them to do that, what barriers they overcame. And I found some really shocking statistics. The one that I still cannot get over is that out of the 11,000 people who have served in office, so 11,000 people who have served in our United States Congress over the history of our country, 356 have ever been women. 356 out of 11,000. And I thought, well, that can't be right. There's like a math error or something like that. Nope, that's right. And guess what? Half of those women are serving today. So the strides that women have made recently are good, but certainly not good enough. In 21 states, they have never sent a female to represent them in the Senate. 21 states, almost half of our country. And in 25 states, half of our country, we have never had a female governor. And those trends, of course, are equivalent, if not more severe, at the state level. And I thought, this cannot be right. I mean, why is this? And I've had people say, well, it's because you have to get to women before they have kids, because otherwise, they get distracted. Well, maybe that's true. I don't know. I certainly ran when I didn't have kids. And while my priorities changed when I did have kids, I was forced to prove to myself that I could do both. But one of the things that I found that was new to me was this very scientifically proven concept of the confidence gap. And what it says is that in all areas of life, not just politics, in all areas of life, women tend to be less confident about their abilities than men. And that leads women to be more risk averse and less likely to kind of step outside their comfort zone, because they think that surely someone else is more qualified. Surely someone else can do it better than I can. I mean, it's simply not true. So just to give you a couple of examples of how that plays out, there's one study where HR professionals were surveyed about why are you guys not promoting more women into these management positions when you're spending money recruiting women and you're doing all these women focused leadership camps and all these things. Why are they not ultimately getting those jobs? And what they found was, it's not that women weren't getting the jobs once they applied, it's that they weren't applying. Because when they looked at the list of job criteria and they saw the 10 things that they needed, experience, whatever it is, a certain degree, whatever it is, you look at a job application and it says, these are the things that are recommended for this job. Women don't apply unless they meet all or almost all of that criteria. While men tend to think, well, I've got at least half of these, so I should probably throw my hat in the ring. And so it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy of, because they're the ones who applied, they end up getting the job and a confidence boost, and then they get the next promotion and the next promotion. So another example is science tests. So a group of college students was given a science test and polled afterwards about how they thought they did on the test. And men overwhelmingly thought that they did much better on the test than women. Women really doubted their abilities. They thought they probably didn't do it very well. They really dwelled on the questions that they thought they missed. And when the results came out, the two groups did exactly equally. But the male college students in those groups were more likely to enter themselves in a science competition. apply for science-related jobs, et cetera, et cetera. And the women's lack of confidence in their own abilities, even though it was completely unfounded, led them to pursue fewer opportunities. So applied to politics, it's the same exact thing. Women think, well, I don't have the family money, or I don't have a degree, or I'm not qualified. And I found that the more that I was sharing my story, that I didn't have any of those things either, and I was 29 to boot, the more I heard women say, well, if you did it, I think I can do it. So I sat down and decided to put all this into a book, because the best way to share that information was, hey, to make it available on Amazon, right? So I put all of this in the book, including the interviews that I had collected from my podcast from women across the country on their experiences. And I do want to touch on this idea of men. This is not a men, it's hard to not talk about it in that way, but this is not women are not successful because their places are being taken by men. It is not an adversarial relationship at all. It's that, first of all, a lot of men and women don't know the severity or the true kind of disconnect between a lot of the statistics, specifically in politics. And men are allies. They are. I mean, I could have never run for office if it wasn't for the support of my former boss, who really encouraged me and gave me that confidence that I needed to put my name on the ballot. I couldn't have done it without my husband, who was that support system and the caretaker for our family while I was serving those late nights. I mean, I could go on and on. My dad, who raised me to be the woman that I am today, and all of them have wives and daughters, and they want those people to have role models to look up to too. And I often get the question, well, what does it really matter from a policy perspective? Like, who really cares if we've only had 356 women out of 11,000 people serving in Congress? Maybe they just don't want to do it. Well, first of all, that has not been my experience. It's been my experience that men don't need to be asked to run for office. They often think about it themselves, while women on average need to be asked an average of 7 times before they consider running for office. I'm asked, if for all you women who are listening, I'm asking you that to ask that question to yourself today, or to the other amazing women who you know in your lives, and to the men watching, who are the amazing women that we just talked about, so many of them who are stepping up for your leadership committees, who are the amazing women that could maybe serve the community in a different capacity, whether it's the local school board or whether it's running for Congress. But it does make a difference from a policy perspective. First of all, you see the politicians or the policymakers who are the most effective are the ones who are the most relatable, right? I mean, it's hard for us to sit and really connect to a lot of the spokespeople we see in Congress, but you've seen how someone like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who can tell the story of going from a bartender in the Bronx to the US Congress, has really struck a nerve, not just with the media, but with their younger generation, saying, well, she sounds just like me. She's talking to people like me. And whether or not you agree with her policies, which I personally don't, but whether or not I agree with her policies, I can see how effective she is as a leader and as a spokesperson, getting her message across. So from a storyteller perspective and from a role model perspective, we need more of these relatable women to step up. When we want to make policy changes, we need the right spokespeople to be able to deliver the message of why that change is so important. It's so easy to get lost in all of the drama and the, politics over policy that happens in Washington. And it's like, people who can cut through all of that and talk about it in a relatable way are so much more effective. So, and so for men, that's why it matters for you too. Like, for the men who are listening, who have, I'm sure, political opinions of their own, if you don't see the right people in office making the case for your argument, if you don't have the right role models for your daughters to look up to, they probably, your arguments are probably going to be less successful. So You know, my story is, I'm hopeful that by kind of just talking about what my challenge to constantly push myself outside my comfort zone. I mean, I'm still not a polished public speaker. I still lack, need that extra boost of support. I still lack the confidence that I need sometimes in myself to really stand up and speak out. But what a difference it has made for my city and ultimately my state. And you'll remember that I told you the reason that I ran for office was property taxes in the first place, and I was able to get that homestead exemption passed. But ultimately, kind of answering the call to join the Texas Public Policy Foundation, which is a state think tank, I helped them pass Senate Bill 2 last session, which was an incredible and really unprecedented statewide property tax reform, that instead of that 8% that property taxes were going up year over year when I first ran for office, it brought that limit down to 3.5%, the benefits of which every taxpayer in the state of Texas will see when it goes into effect next session. So me waking up one day and saying, well, if I don't do this, who will? And me forcing myself to overcome my doubts, and me allowing myself to let my frustration motivate me to constantly take the next step, has not just made a difference for my family and our property tax bills, which would be even worse than they are today if it weren't for my advocacy, but now has been able to impact families across the state of Texas. And so it's really a testament to what difference the one voice can make. That one vote in the 10-1 has now had an impact on the entire state of Texas. So I want to, leave you with a couple of things. First of all, please ask yourself, I know that this group is already full of such amazing leaders, and I know that you have wonderful careers and that you're an advocate already. But if you've never thought about whether or not you would be the right person to run for office, I want you to ask yourself that question. I want you to think about other women in your life who might be good leaders, and talk to your husbands, talk to your sons about some of the statistics that we talked about, and why does that matter, and who else do they know who might be a good fit. I want you to remember the confidence gap. And even though, I have to portray myself as a very confident person when I was on the dais or when I'm speaking to media or whatever it may be, I sometimes need that extra encouragement too, even if it's not public policy related. So be supportive of each other. And even if it's not running for office, think about volunteering for a campaign you care about. Think about donating to a candidate that you believe in. And we've seen that really can make a difference. I will say, on the Austin City Council level, I'm sure I'm not alone in continuing my frustration in some of the decisions that have been made recently, whether it's the removal of the homeless camping ban, or the cutting of the Austin police budget, and what that means for the future of our city, what that means for the future economics of our city, whether or not our businesses can stay in business, whether or not we're going to be able to keep attracting people here when kind of the Californian wave is over. Are we going to be a city that can stand on its own 2 feet, and that where artists and families and musicians and all of the people who make the city truly unique, are we all going to be able to continue to afford to live here, or are we just going to be the next San Francisco? And even though I'm not on council anymore, this question, it's a question that I go to bed thinking about and wake up thinking about. And I hope that you guys, I know that this organization already does join with me in kind of paying attention to what's going on at the local level, while we all like to get wrapped up in the federal level. And, obviously Trump and politics and the presidential election has absolutely dominated the news cycle. Please do not forget that it is the local politicians, it is the local policies that actually affect your everyday life, that actually most affect your pocketbooks, that actually most affect the policies that your business or your family are facing on a daily basis, whether it's, the permitting process that you have to go through to build, to add a bathroom onto your house, items big and small. So happy to answer any questions that you might have about the city or about the book, but I'm just so grateful for your time and for your advocacy in your own right as part of IREM.
Thank you very much, Ellen. It was a wonderful presentation. We are getting a slew of questions right now, so we'll go ahead and open it up to the Q&A. First question we have is, Ellen, how would you encourage people to get engaged in public policy if they don't run for office?
If they don't run for office? So, I mean, I think the key is, especially for women, and I'm sorry to kind of keep harping on that, but especially women tend to be very motivated by issues that have caused frustration for them. So whether it's, a park being, a pool in your neighborhood being closed, or something being built next to you that you don't agree with, obviously mine was the property tax issue. I know other women who are on their issue is transportation issue. So it's the key is really keying into what's important to you. Is it education issues? Is it not just you, but your friends, and say, well, who are the people that are making those decisions, and are you happy with the decisions that they're making? And if the answer is no, then that's such an easy place to start. And we just had a couple of our city council half of our city council up for election this time, but there's a lot still going on the local front. There's an effort to create a strong mayor form of government that will be on our ballot in May. There's a petition effort on reinstating the homeless camping ban. We will have a new mayor in 2022, and that election will start. I mean, those campaigns will likely start at the end of this year. So 2022 seems like a long way away, but it's really not. And the hardest part is recruiting the right candidates. So, and the easiest way to get involved is to just pick an issue, pick a candidate, go block walk, participate in forums like this. There's a couple of other resources that I share in my book. One is the Policy Circle, and I absolutely love that organization. It's kind of like a book club. It's nonpartisan, but instead of reading a book, you have these really interesting policy briefs that you read. So it could be on civic engagement or arts or planning and zoning or whatever. There's tons of topics to choose from, and you basically invite your friends over. You read a little policy brief, you drink a glass of wine, and you talk in kind of a safe forum about whatever is on your mind. And the way that they have it set up and the way that they kind of moderate it really allows women to feel like they have the confidence, like they get used to talking about those issues, or they start thinking more about them. And then it gives them the confidence that they need to then speak out or step up if and when the time is right in the public sphere.
Fantastic. Next question. Do you have aspirations to run for another office in the future? If so, which one or ones?
I don't know. The honest answer, and I'm sure I could come up with some the classic politician canned answer, but the honest answer is I don't know. I really feel like I prayed about whether or not to run for city council the second time, and it felt so right the first time, even though on paper I was not the right candidate. In my heart, I felt like it was the right thing to do. It's like all the politicians who say, "Oh, I felt called to run for office," I would have probably said BS to before, but now that really is how I felt. The first time it was just like a no-brainer, and this time I just didn't feel it. And I'm so glad that I kind of listened to that intuition, because I've been able to reach so many more people and inspire. My role on council was very important, but the platform that I've been given since I've not been on council, whether it's through Fox News or writing the book or TPPF or just serving my clients in a business that I love in residential real estate, those doors that have been, I just kind of opened doors or walked through doors as they've opened. And so I don't know what the future will hold. I don't necessarily have any particular aspirations to run for anything else. I feel like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing right now, but I also am well aware that I need to practice what I preach. And if the need and opportunity arises, never say never.
Of course. Next question. Why do you think the city of Austin refuses to allow an audit, and do you see public pressure helping them reconsider and decide if it is the right thing to do?
I love how informed this group is. Y'all are like, we already know everything that's going on in the city. Yeah. So that was one of the last things that I tried to help with while I was on council, was to get an independent performance audit done. We have an amazing city auditor, but she only has the capacity to audit specific program, like very specific issues. And a lot of times it's not necessarily performance based. It's kind of just tracking or, a check mark next to a certain financial item that was it accounted for or not. And so there was a referendum to put a comprehensive performance audit on the ballot, which I think is absolutely necessary in the city of Austin. Like, the city doesn't even implement the small things that our city auditor recommends that we do sometimes. And the waste is just mind-boggling. I mean, I'll tell you just one small example that has really stuck in my mind is oil changes. I mean, you don't think, when you run for office, you don't think, well, I'm going to run because the oil changes are done really inefficiently at the city of Austin. But we have thousands and thousands of city vehicles, right? Between police cars and code enforcement and Austin Energy. And we do all of our oil changes in-house. And it costs us at least a third more to do all of our oil changes within the city of Austin, instead of outsourcing such a simple thing. And so, like, that to me is a no-brainer. It's like, here's an easy way to maintain, you always hear, well, if we cut taxes, then you're going to cut city services. There are so many examples that you maintain the exact same city service. I'm not saying don't give city vehicles oil changes. I'm saying let's do it with a third party who specializes in oil changes, so that we're not paying a premium and the taxpayers aren't paying, $250 for every oil change that we do. So that's a frustrating issue to me. And I hope that, I don't know if they were just scared. To me, I want to know if I'm doing something not well, especially when I'm in charge of a $4 billion budget and it's other people's money. Like, I'm not embarrassed I don't want to not know the information, because I would be embarrassed that I made a mistake. I would be glad to know the information so that I can change it and be better for the future. And unfortunately, that has not been the attitude of the current city council. And I'm hopeful, with more and more people really waking up to some of the poor decisions that the city has made recently, I'm hoping that we can elect some people who are going to want to know those answers.
Great information, thank you. Next question is, what was the biggest challenge you faced in getting your campaign for city council off the ground? Any advice for those consider running for office in the future regarding those early stages?
Sure. First of all, go check out the book. It's called Step Up, How to Advocate Like a Woman. You can buy it on Amazon. You can buy it on my website too. It's ellentroxclair.com, but you can buy it on Amazon as well and have easy shipping. But that's exactly why I wrote the book, because I wanted to demonstrate not only why we need more women to step up and run for office, but also how to do it. So part 2 of the book is a step-by-step guide of, here's what you do if you think you want to run for office. And here was my experience, and here were lessons learned, and here were things that I would repeat, and here are things that I wouldn't repeat. The most challenging part for me personally was the public speaking, because it was something that I never liked to do. And it took me a long time to get comfortable doing it, but you had to. Like, there were so many, there aren't as many now, I feel like, but when that first 10-1 council happened, everybody was so excited. I mean, there were forums at every single HOA and every single community organization. And so I had no choice but to do it. But ultimately, me being genuine and not necessarily being the most polished person in the room allowed people to connect with me and to see that I was doing it for the right reasons. So I would say sometimes don't doubt yourself, because sometimes what you think is your biggest weakness can actually really be a strength. And the second thing is you need money, and you have not personal money. I mean, you can raise $400. I think the limit now is $400 per person. But one of the good things about running in a seat with a campaign limit is that $400 is a lot, but it's an amount that people who really believe in you and are really invested in the city, they're willing to do it. And so, calling people and saying, here's why I'm running, and I really need your financial support to do this and this and this. And if you give me $400 now, I won't call you again. If you give me $100 now, I'm going to call you again next week for another $100 and again for another $100. So I kind of use that to my advantage, but that's just like candidates generally. And again, especially women hate making fundraising calls and asking for money, but it's the least, I mean, this sounds ungrateful, but like, it's the least that they can do. You're the one that's actually putting your time and energy and heart and reputation and family. Like, you're the one that's willing to put in the work and put in the time and put yourself out there. So the least they can do is help support you with a little bit of financial support or volunteering support. So you just kind of have to go into that with the confidence, and then also be the hardest worker. You can't just expect that you're going to have a bunch of volunteers go block walk for you while you sit at home. You have to be the hardest worker on your campaign and really get out there and talk to as many people as you can.
Great. And this next question, I think you might have covered a little bit of it in your last answer, but how do you deal with difficult feedback and criticism being in the public eye? I'm not sure if there's anything you can add to that.
I never get criticized. I'm just so delightful and pleasant. It was really, I mean, to be honest, being the only one, there are not very many political bodies where there's only one dissenting vote. And, I feel like the labels Republican and Democrats are so politically charged these days, but I do consider myself a Republican, a conservative, and I knew that was not welcome from a lot of from some in the city, and certainly sometimes from my other colleagues who we differed on ideological stuff, even though there were plenty of things that we could work on together. So I mean, part of me says, like, you just have to have thick skin, and I guess I do. I mean, people are such armchair commentators. Like, it's so easy for people to hide behind a keyboard and post something negative on Facebook or Twitter, but like, what kept me going was really staying true to my principles, and then going back to my district, like not getting sucked in to City Hall. It's just an echo chamber. It's the same people, I don't feel like the conversations that happen at City Hall are really representative of the conversations that real people across the city were having. So what grounded me was, number one, my family. And then number two, just like spending time with real people in my district and keeping my job. I was the only council member who, I mean, it's a full-time job technically, with a paid salary and everything, but I kept my residential real estate business because I thought it was important to have a foot outside of that echo chamber. And here, my clients talk about, well, what are the property taxes and what is the commute like, and all these decisions that were going into making their financial purchasing their home. So I don't know. I think if you're in it for the right reasons and you really believe why you're there, it just helps you kind of shrug off the people who don't agree with you. Like, I know, especially on the more politically charged issues, I knew it would be unpopular for me to speak up or speak out. But I always kind of kept in mind that I represented the regular people in my district and not necessarily just the people that were in City Hall, and that's what I ran to do. Like, I didn't run to just go along to get along. I ran to be change and to represent a voice that wasn't represented. And so as long as I remembered that, then I was able to kind of stay true to myself and not get too impacted. If my husband was answering that question, he would say, no, there were definitely some times that you were impacted. So there are some difficult moments, but all in all, it comes out okay.
There'll always be that with the spouse.
Yeah.
Let's see here. What is the name of your podcast? And do you have any others you recommend for women in politics?
Any other podcasts?
Yes.
Well, my podcast was also called Step Up, How to Advocate Like a Woman. And we kind of stopped recording at the beginning of COVID, but there's some awesome interviews from, I mean, just amazing women. I meant to share one of them during my speech, but one of the women, you know, when people say, well, does it really make a policy difference? Like, who cares if it's women or men, as long as they're, you know, as long as they're people you agree with. And of course, I would never tell you to vote for somebody only because they're man or the woman, or they have purple hair versus red hair, or whatever it is. But I do think that having people with different perspectives at the table really does make a difference. And so one of those women who I interviewed, she is a now state senator from West Virginia. Yeah. She was a stay-at-home mom of 5 with 2 special needs kids. And she got frustrated. She's from Venezuela, and she saw the Bush doing the bank bailouts back in, I don't know, whenever that was, seems like a long time ago now, and said, nope, this is not the right direction. You have to have the freedom to fail if you have the freedom to succeed. And like, this is going the way of Venezuela, and I love this country too much. And I can't go back to Venezuela. So what do we need to do to keep it strong here? So that was kind of why she ran for office. But ultimately she shares a story in the podcast about the gas tax and a proposal to increase the gas tax. And how she kind of brought the perspective of a mom, like a middle-class mom of 5 kids who drove a minivan around, dropping her kids, you know, taking them to activities and trying to homeschool them and like do all this other stuff. And she's like, it does matter. Like, a 1/2 cent or a 3-cent gas tax or whatever it is, like, it really does matter to me. And so that story wouldn't be at the table otherwise. Anyway, so check out the podcast. And then I don't know, I feel like I don't know a good answer to this question about what other podcasts you should listen to, but I'll think about it, because I don't have a whole lot of time to listen to a whole lot of other things. So I'll think about it, and if you want to email me, I can maybe come up with some suggestions for you. But yeah, you can find Step Up, How to Advocate Like a Woman in the podcast.
That's great. I'm sure tons of us will be checking that out. Thank you. Let's see here. Question here. What do you think Mayor Adler's chances are to receive a national government appointment in 2021? Especially ever since the Cabo travel scandal.
I had heard that, I mean, first of all, disclaimer, I don't know. We don't chat a lot these days. But I do think that the Cabo thing has hurt his image and his reputation. I had heard, you know, he is a big donor to, I know he was a big Hillary supporter and Biden supporter. He hosts fundraisers and stuff at his place in Austin. So, you know, it wouldn't surprise me that if he got an appointment, especially because he's also very involved in the National Mayor's organization. So I think a lot of those people know him. Oh, and he's very close with Mayor Pete Buttigieg. So I think there's a good chance of him getting roped in. I don't know how much the Cabo thing will impact him, but I will say, I don't know from a Austin perspective. I mean, just keep in mind that if he does get appointed, we're going to have a mayor, we're going to have a special election for a mayor, and it's going to happen really quickly. And my guess is, I mean, several of the current city council members, Greg Casar, Ann Kitchen, and probably a few others I think really want to run for mayor. So if you think that there's a chance that he's going to get appointed and you don't want to support a current city council member for mayor, then you guys better start thinking about who is a good candidate to step up, because that light switch is going to have to be flipped pretty quickly.
Very right. A lot of people are worried about safety, considering the APD budget cuts, as well as the new district attorney, Jose Garza. What can we do right now to help keep our community safe and keep our local leadership accountable?
So, I mean, I really think that this last election was a pretty big win. You know, it's hard because some of these issues are divisive. So I'm speaking on my own behalf, and it sounds like from the person who asked the question. But, you know, Jimmy Flanagan was the council member from Northwest Austin who was the chair of the Public Safety Committee. And I mean, I think the APD cuts were really led by Greg Casar and Jimmy Flanagan. And Jimmy was up for re-election and he didn't win. And so, and his opponent, again, regardless of whether you're a Republican or Democrat, his opponent ran on restoring public safety and saying, like, this is not okay. This is not the future that we want for our city. We don't want to be the next San Francisco. And she won. So it's not, people get frustrated often getting involved in Austin politics because it is so hard to make a difference. But I do think that Mackenzie's election kind of sent a very important message that, and Allison Alter almost lost as well, to somebody who was ran on restoring public safety. So I think that, so the right thing to say is, like, elections do matter, and you can have an even bigger impact on local elections than federal elections. So I think just keep the pressure on, and I don't know, it's so hard. I think that public safety continues to be a major issue, but I'm hoping, so my note of optimism is that I think that many of the council members may be realizing that they approached that in the wrong way, or maybe rushed to judgment before they had other things in place to cover the public safety gaps that we were going to see. So I think when you see this new council, I mean, Mackenzie was just inaugurated along with another new council member, Vanessa Fuentes, and we'll see. But I think that we might see them over the next couple of months walk back a little bit of their kind of slashing of the APD budget. So I'm just gonna, but continuing to be kind of vocal about it and getting involved in voting is really important.
Definitely. Next question. A petition is being generated to change to a strong mayor system in Austin instead of strong city manager. And what are your thoughts on that?
The short answer is I don't know yet. I have friends who definitely have tried to talk me into supporting the strong mayor system because you get more accountability, but I'm very, very concerned about, I do think in our current environment that our city manager has brought balance or like temperament, that the city council is led by kind of they're very influenced by activists and the organizations that can be at those city council meetings for 12 hours a day, and not like the normal people, like I said before. And so they respond very politically to the changing of the tides, and the city manager, I think, has been able to be, Spencer Cronk, I think, has done a good job of trying to just steer the ship in obviously following through with what the council asks him to do, as he's required to do, but not in an incendiary or inflammatory way, like really trying to focus on good governance. And so I think that has added some good balance. So I don't know, I'm not convinced yet, I guess is the short answer. But there are some really bad, there's 4 different proposals. They just turned it in, by the way. There's a story in the Austin Monitor about it today. You guys should read the Austin Monitor if you don't already. It's a really great local news source. So there's 4 different propositions, or 4 different parts to it. And one of the parts is giving everybody in the city of Austin like $100 voucher to give to their candidate of their choice. And I think that is absolutely ridiculous. That's just going to come something that's going to come out of our pocket. There's ways that people can help their candidates, like I said, block walking, volunteering, without getting city dollars, other dollars from other people. Like, I don't want my $100 going to somebody, I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense. So there are some real problems with what they put on the ballot, but jury's still out. I'll make up my mind though before it gets on the ballot. And y'all can join. I'm pretty active on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So I'm sure I'll make some kind of statement about it sooner rather than later. And then I have an email list too that I try to send out important, city updates via email as well. So you can just send me an email and I can add you to it.
Perfect. We'll stay tuned. Another question. Have you seen a fairly big change in women having their voices heard between when you first started your career and now?
I definitely think so. I mean, it's something that I was just generally kind of not aware of, or not, like, we just weren't having the conversations in the same way. And the conversations that were happening, like, you know, feminism is such a difficult word because we have all these like political associations now, but a lot of the kind of feminist rhetoric that I was hearing was very like anti men. And so I didn't really associate with that. And so now that I've kind of learned more that I do think that we need to do more to support women in policy and politics, but that there's a collaborative way to do it. I feel like there has been really good gains. I mean, last cycle, or actually I think it was in 2008. When was it? I can't remember, but there was a recent congressional cycle that Democrat women made history by electing more women than ever to Congress. And then this last cycle, in this last election, a historic number of Republican women have been elected to Congress. They're like doubling it's sad, but you know, they're going from like 15 to 30. So in the House out of like 500 and whatever, 535. So it's still small, but it's really historic numbers. So I do think that there are a lot of strides being made.
Fantastic. I think that finishes up our Q&A here. I want to go ahead and announce the winners of the book, Step Up, How to Advocate Like a Woman. And they are Chris Covo, Liesl Nobles, Pat Gorner, Ashley Rodriguez, and Jasmine Porter. So we'll be sending some information out via email after the presentation. And Ellen, want to thank you so much for taking the time with us today. As I said, just wonderful presentation, and want to let you know we'll be donating to the Central Texas Food Bank as a thank you to you. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. That's wonderful. I really appreciate it, guys. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. And I'll turn it back to Adam now.
Wow, thank you very much, Scott, for putting that together for us. And thank you, Ellen. Incredibly meaningful, impactful information. As somebody who's got a power woman, a boss lady at home, it's very cool to hear of your journey and the positivity that you continue to spread. And I really love you bringing up the confidence gap. And I look forward to IREM Austin and our committees helping to work together to crush that gap. It needs to go away. So thank you for your time. Thanks everyone for supporting IREM Austin. Please register for the joint BOMA and IREM webinar taking place on Thursday with Beth Z, your nerdy best friend, to learn about super tech tools to get stuff done. We encourage everyone to sign up and participate in the Region 7 Diversity Program scheduled for January 21st at noon, featuring our guest speaker, Jenna Shellman, on what is a cultural fit and why is it a problem, followed by a 21-day diversity, equity, and inclusion challenge. Please keep in mind this is free and it's taken care of by IREM Austin Region 7. Also note that our February luncheon will take place virtually on February 9th. Details will be available on IREM Austin's website. We hope that our April Austin will be a hybrid event and details will be available as soon as possible. Always check IREM Austin's website and social media pages for upcoming events, classes, and all things IREM. We look forward to seeing you all again very soon. Stay warm, stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you very much.